And you, though, are providing something anyway that I think people can derive value from. The Midas Touch Network has really taken off, Anthony Davis, hasn't it?
Well, do you know what I would say to that is that all the demonization of immigrants that you hear from Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans, as an immigrant, it's very frustrating because we come here to contribute. We come here to seek a better life. But when you really try to, because it's not easy to get into the United States, you have to go through multiple visa processes. You have to pay huge application fees. In many cases, you have to have there's lawyers' fees, immigration lawyers to kind of help you get through, navigate the system. When you finally get here, you're so thrilled, and it's no different to bringing your family across the southern border. You're so thrilled that you've finally managed to get into America, the free world, that you're not going to commit crime, bring drugs, rape and pillage. You're going to want to build a hospital if you can. That's how you feel, because you feel grateful that the country has given you this opportunity. And that's how I feel with the work that I do. 5 Minute News started as just a short daily podcast, and it has grown from there. But my intention was always to offer a service because I genuinely am grateful that the United States has opened its doors to me.
Yeah, that's terrific. What a great what a great take. I mean, it is indeed the case that I can never understand. I was asking this question the other day: why, if you were in the country illegally, I know you're not, but I mean, if one of these southern border someone who has risked everything to be here and ends up in some low level, obviously, maybe it's an agrarian job, maybe it's a kitchen backroom kind of job, these things just to survive in the dark economy, if you want to think of it that way. Why would you vote? I mean, I understand why you might want to vote, but why would you show up at a polling place when you're so afraid of being thrown out of the country? And yet the allegation on the part of the GOP and Donald Trump, of course, leading this lie, is that millions come here illegally and vote illegally in American elections. There is no evidence. And I'm saying, regardless of the evidence, what would be the motivation to show up at a polling place with all of those police officers, with all of those officials?
But there's no point in us even analyzing it, Mark, because it doesn't happen. This is just pure propaganda on behalf of Donald Trump to demonize immigrants in another way. And him and the Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, they brought forward a bill to close this down when it had never been built up in the first place. So this is an example of how far they will go with propaganda, because it's illegal to vote as an immigrant if you don't have citizenship. And immigrants know that. And you're right. Why would they go to a polling place? They just wouldn't. So, and the other thing we need to think about also is that people crossing the southern border, especially those seeking asylum, which is, legal requirement, you seek asylum, and you are entitled to be given the safe harbor, is that a lot of these people are skilled. A lot of these people do bring, great opportunities to the United States because they have skills. I just feel like, the American media, they tend to look at these people as being unwashed, uncouth layabouts because they have brown skin and dirty feet. And it's like, do you really know? Like, if you were to sit these people down and actually talk to them in their own language, half of them are a lot smarter than the very Americans who are criticizing them. Far more educated, have had far more experience. And that's why I say, because I took a flight, I flew up to, where did I go? Canada, a couple of weeks ago. And I was flying over, and over, 2.5 hour flight, flying across all this empty land. And then I see these little cities, little towns. And I'm like, oh, look, there's Idaho, right? Well, in my mind, Idaho was this kind of huge, sprawling thing. It's not actually that big, but it has a perimeter to it. And I was thinking, if you dumped a whole load of talented migrants in there, they'd build Idaho out. They'd build more hospitals, and they'd build, a railway network, and they'd actually grow the city because they bring those types of skills with them. And this is why I don't believe, just if you change your perspective, i.e. to 25,000 feet or 30,000 feet and look down, you'll see that we are not full. Most of America is uninhabited. And the more people that come in, the more these cities will grow and the more the economy will grow with it.
Well, you need some kind of protocol associated with immigration that does control the number of people who are coming in, don't you think?
All countries have that.
Right.
All countries also have a problem because, good countries people want to go to, and countries that border problematic countries people want to go to. And as you know, the rule with asylum is you have to seek asylum in the first kind of country that you can get to, first civilized country you can get to. But I just believe that because we are a nation built by immigrants and slaves, that invariably let the immigrants in and watch the nation be built even bigger and even greater.
Sure.
There's room for everybody. The whole there's no room for you, we can't handle it. That I just think that's racism. I don't think that's based in truth.
Well, I would say that it is true that services, municipal services, and state and even federal services that are provided to those who live here do have limits. You can stress those systems to the point that they no longer function.
But,
so you need some way to control those numbers.
You do, but also if you want to really dig deeper into it, then you could argue that the private sector is taking advantage of these municipal budgets, and there are huge profits being made by companies who are working these government contracts, and that if they only made a little less profit and spent a little bit more on infrastructure, I mean, the US has the worst infrastructure, especially public transit, things like that. Anywhere else in the world, they have high-speed trains, they have, monorails, they have systems that are modern and exciting, and in the best cities, all these things are free. It should be free, really. But here, I mean, have they managed to build that high-speed rail yet from Los Angeles to San Francisco, or is that still
and it
underway?
It is the bane of our existence in California because we've gotten a little bit pregnant, right? We've started it, and it's billions of dollars over budget. It's years behind schedule. It's a good idea. This is maybe where I part company with a lot of people because I actually think it is a good idea. You should have high-speed rail. You should have high-speed rail in a number of ways. Now private money is going into high-speed rail between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. Right. I believe that's going to be a profitable enterprise. But this high-speed rail, as you suggested in California, has been beset by issues of all sorts. And
corruption is one of them.
Corruption, any big infrastructure project, you really have to guard against corruption. And this does appear, ripe with it. What's your take on the, speaking of corruption, on the you could almost go anywhere. You do such good work on Trump. Yeah. I just saw the other day that he started let me see if I actually put it in. I meant to. Trump people started another company associated with his election that is so shrouded in secrecy, no one can figure out what it is. It's another shell company, sort of. It's another receptacle for campaign funds. And it's already collected $15 million, I think was the number I saw. And no one can figure out, it's owned by Trump, but it is also in this orbit as a campaign instrument. And one of the things that Trump has discovered is that in running for office, you can make a fortune, particularly if you want to play the edges, and that's what he does. He only plays the edges.
Well, this is why some people go into politics. They go in for the money, and they're the wrong people. You might argue that Mayor Eric Adams might be one of these people, right?
Right,
I'm
thing.
Sure you'll be talking about him today. But, money is very corrupting. And if you're somebody who is, that's your ideal, because, of course, there's two types of people that go into politics, right? There's those who want to change the world, and there are those that want to take from the world. And I believe that hopefully most politicians go in initially for the right reasons. Donald Trump never went in for the right reasons. He firstly didn't think he was going to win, and he wanted to build his brand so he could start a media empire and TV channel in his name and all this stuff back in 2016. Then he won, and he was like, what do I do now? And the whole golden escalator thing, I mean, to me, that was more of a metaphor for him literally pooping his pants as he comes down the thing, thinking, how am I going to make this look legitimate? Because the whole thing was a grift from the very beginning. And it's just, he is so flawed as a person. And unfortunately, the system here in the US, where you can have a foundation and you can get paid through the foundation, and that means that you get money that you couldn't if it was the campaign, and all these loopholes. I mean, his middle name is Loophole. And consequently, that's how he's managed to leverage so much money, because, of course, his businesses have gone bankrupt 6 times, and he's borrowed billions and had no plan or method to pay these banks back. And so he is one of these people, and my father was a little bit like this. We call it in England living on the never-never, where you don't really, you're not really making money. Everything is leveraged, My father has passed away, by the way, so he's not going to be watching this and being like, how dare you say I was always in debt? The guy was always in debt, always in debt, and it's very stressful. And I'm somebody who've, I've always thought to myself, if I can't afford it, I can't have it.
Sure.
Right?
Well, and Trump brags about debt. I mean, and in this country, of course, actually leveraging so that you can deal with debt and carrying debt isn't a bad thing. The businesses do it. Trump has taken it to high art. Now, Trump's thing is that he'll skate on the debt. He'll try to negotiate it down. He'll try never to really honor the debt.
Right.
Here it is. Campaign finance experts talk about this launch pad strategies. It was built for anonymity. It's the latest example of how the Trump campaign has used secretive businesses to obscure its spending from the public. Here it is. The quote is from a law professor at Northwestern who examined this. The Trump campaigns sort of exhibit a lot of the patterns of behavior that we've become accustomed to with Trump and his associates. There does seem to be some kind of self-dealing in a lot of what they do when it comes to their financial matters. And so Launchpad is this latest thing. And the Federal Election Commission records show that more than $876 million, that's right, $876 million moved through Trump's campaigns and pro-Trump fundraising committees over the past 9 years to 6 LLCs, including Launchpad Strategies. So, again, he can get away with this because, as you suggested, this is the way our system is set up. But somebody can become very wealthy if that's all they really want to do. And that is all he really wants to do.
And it's the same with tax avoidance versus tax evasion, isn't it? It's like if you get into the tax avoidance camp, as most business people do, because they're not taxed at source, then they can get away with paying far less tax. This is the Warren Buffett rule, of course. His secretary, pays proportionately way more tax than he does as a billionaire. And it's problematic. I mean, you and I could talk about these things for hours, and in my view, all roads lead to socialism as a solution. Genuinely. I talked about having free public transit. That is it's a socialist ideal that should absolutely be the case. How do you get people out their cars? I just made a piece on climate change yesterday because Joe Biden made this speech. And I genuinely believe that because Americans culturally will not be told how to live their lives, there is no chance of dealing with the United States' carbon emissions as the second biggest polluter on the planet. It's cultural as well. So as an immigrant coming here, yes, you can do very well in America, but you really do have to buy into this kind of American capitalist system. And that's where the success comes from. And Donald Trump has taken full advantage of that. And there are people that will celebrate the fact that Donald Trump has admitted, as he did on that debate with Hillary Clinton, well, of course I'm not going to pay tax. I'm not an idiot.
Right, right. That was such an interesting choice he made on that response. I want to go
Yeah.
back to the socialism thing because, of course, everybody reacts in a and that whips a lot of heads around. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
But let me understand what you're saying. You're saying, first of all, we already have aspects of socialism here. So all of you in the chat who are going nuts, I mean, there are aspects of socialism associated with American society already.
Social Security.
Sure, and Social Security, any number of ways in which the government is supporting or enabling aspects of American life. The idea that you said all roads lead to socialism, do you mean that from the standpoint of socialist, again, more instruments that might be called socialist or even socialist because the government is providing things for free? Or are you saying capitalism needs to be or can't survive, and as a result, socialism is the only viable way to continue with American society?
Well,
That's a radical notion.
Yeah, it's not either or. You see, capitalism, I'm a capitalist. I exist in a capitalist system, but I'm also grew up in a social democracy. And so understanding the difference between a social democracy and a socialist country, two different, very different things. A social democracy provides a social safety net. So you'll get, if you can't work, that's not your fault. So you get supported. And indefinitely, there's no limit. Okay, your unemployment stops here. No, if you can't work legitimately, the system should keep paying you, and that's what we have in the UK. The healthcare is free. It's not great, but it's good enough, and it's paid for through taxation. So, these things are designed to support the people that can't make $1 billion.
Sure.
And the attitude about a socialist system or a social democracy in the US is so misunderstood because the word socialism has been weaponized.
Right.
But, let's be clear, the military, we spend a huge amount of the national budget on the military. The military is a socialist concept, isn't it? You give people a job, you feed them, you clothe them, you give them somewhere to live. You allow their families to be part of that too. I mean, that's really a socialist system. Medicare, Medicaid, this is all socialism. And yet people don't want any of those things taken away.
Well, even within municipalities, fire departments, police forces, these are things you can...
But I would expand it. So I believe in universal basic income. I believe that people should be paid if they are not skilled, for example. And we don't seem to have in American political discourse enough depth to our analysis to talk about what's really going on in the world. Automation, for example, the climate crisis and migration, the climate migration, which is going to affect people's jobs, biodiversity, the loss of which is massive for the United States. These things people are not really talking about in our kind of political discourse here. Imagine saying to Donald Trump in an interview, so what's your feeling on the loss of the US biodiversity? Imagine how he would wriggle out of that one. So my point is that you have to start talking about things like UBI if you are going to be serious about the direction that we're going in.
Well, the pilot programs with
automation.
UBI have been fairly successful. We had one of them, I think, in Sacramento. Isn't that right, Kim?
That's right,
Albert?
yeah.
I think that's right. Isn't that, Anthony, you know that, right?
Yeah, sure.
These pilot programs, beta testing UBI, actually has been rather successful.
Because you receive money to invest back into the economy. You don't keep that money. You need it to live on. So you reinvest it in the economy. It's just the branding of these things. It's to call Kamala Harris a socialist, a Marxist, and a fascist. For a start, you can't be all three at once, right? Those are three different constructs. So forget that. But secondly, Donald Trump is also advocating, he's like, I'm never going to take away your Social Security. I mean, he says that, he probably is, but he just says it. So therefore, he's buying into a socialist concept himself.
Yeah.
That's what Social Security is. And I think that if you expand that to public transit and to universal basic income and certainly to healthcare, because America, remember, spends more on healthcare than any other country in the world, and yet has the worst healthcare than most countries in the world. The healthcare here is terrible. In fact, let's not even call it healthcare. Let's just call it health. Or maybe just health profit. It's nuts here. It's so bad.
This
you
is
think
interesting
it's
to hear you
good
say
because
this
you've been told it's good.
what I've seen is, and I see it in the chat, is, well, you can have a healthcare system that's socialist, underpinned by socialism, like the British system, but the quality of healthcare, the access to healthcare, when you can get an appointment, when you can get in, this sort of thing, is just not the way it is in the U.S.
I disagree with that. I really do, because I was trying to see a specialist recently using private healthcare, which of course I have to pay for here, and I can't get an appointment for 6 weeks to see a specialist, right? It's no different under the private system. You get lucky sometimes, other times you might be unlucky. And let's remember something about, because people get confused with what Bernie Sanders says about, universal healthcare, healthcare for all. It doesn't mean that you don't continue to have private healthcare. It means you have a public healthcare system that runs alongside private healthcare. So if you're happy to pay for your private healthcare, or your employer pays for it, that will continue, right? That will continue. But there has to be a service for people that don't have an employer paying for it and people who can't afford it. Because I pay $1,500 a month for a family of 4. And that's a lot of money to not use it. We're fit and healthy.
Right.
We don't use it. And so you're looking at what, $15,000, $16,000 a year for a service we don't use. And then when we do use it, there's a copay. What are you talking about? I pay $1,500 a month. Yeah, but you got to pay another $50 now. Why? What changed? Well, you used it. Yeah, but I pay $1,500 a month. Yeah, but that's if you don't use it.
Wow. Yeah. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds like a bad deal.
I've been living here for 8 years, so let me add up how much I have spent in the last 8 years on healthcare. Just me as an immigrant moving here, as a self-employed person with no employer paying my healthcare. What is it? I've paid what? Nearly $100,000 in healthcare?
What?
Yeah.
What did I get? It's all profit, Mark. It's all profit.
Well, look, you and I have both spent time in countries, communist countries, socialist systems, and you, of course, come out of the UK, which has some socialist, as you suggested, the socialist democracy that is set up there. So socialism, you've seen it coexist with other political systems, but here is my point. In a pure communist system, which again we've both seen, the people who are spending money are the ones who are getting stuff done. To see people, I'm sorry, but I've seen it firsthand, essentially unmotivated because they won't make any more money by doing their job efficiently and quickly than they will by just kind of slow walking it. I've seen it.
I've seen it too, but I don't have a problem with those people either, because not everybody has the motivation or the skill set to work at a high capacity. Some people are just layabouts.
But Anthony, I mean, is it not? I mean, when you're going in for some service, don't you want that whatever service is provided to be provided at the highest level possible? If you don't feel that you can do that, then that's not the job for you. Am I wrong?
I just think that not all people are the same, right? People are all different. And some people are highly motivated, other people are highly skilled, some people are trained, some people are not trained, some people are intelligent, some people are stupid, some people are educated, some people are not educated, some people are physically fit, other people have disabilities and struggle. And so the point that I'm making is that you can't have a kind of blanket rule that just applies and be like, well, if it's a bit like voting. If you can't get to the polling place, if you can't get there, should you lose your vote?
Right. Well, just quickly from Cassandra in the chat, my son is alive today because of universal health care. He fell on a trip in Brazil and was treated for free. Thank you, President Lula. It is interesting, Americans who are overseas, who need health care, marvel at the fact that they walk in, they get treated sometimes, in this case of Cassandra's son, for some serious things, and there's no bill.
If you were to come to the UK and you fell, as an American person, you could walk into a hospital, they ask you for your name and your date of birth, and that's all they'll ask you for. They're not going to ask you for your credit card details, they're not going to ask you for your insurance. They will treat you because it's there's not that many foreign nationals falling over and getting hurt that it's a problem. A universal system should truly be universal. And it's the same when it comes to, prescriptions and medications. I just think that some things should not be for profit, right? Education should not be for profit. Healthcare should not be for profit. And in certain parts of the world, transportation should not be for profit.
Well, the for-profit aspect of American life has definitely destroyed, for many people, many things. There is no. Here's. I'm just looking at the chat while I'm talking. Edward Lee says, "I have a feeling Mark expects a 5-star experience at a 2-star restaurant."
Yeah.
Actually, I was thinking when I was talking to you about somebody who's not so good at what they do, I was thinking about a doctor's office.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of the paperwork associated with patients' files and with bringing you in and administratively to a doctor's office and a healthcare provider. I've seen that done well by people in the front office staff, and I've seen it done poorly. I mean, to the point that there are real confusions about facts and what procedures have been done and what this patient is here for.
And that's dangerous.
Exactly. And that's my point. I'm not ready to cut slack to everybody just because we're all different. And, you got to give them a break.
That's the same in any job. That's not specific to healthcare. That's the same in any job.
Exactly.
But my bigger issue is with the doctors themselves. Let me give you a very quick example. When I was shopping around for my health insurance at the end of last year, I discovered that if I wanted to pay, I think, £1,250 a month for the family, dollars, sorry, that did not include any board-certified doctors. Now, this is not something we have in the UK.
I'm laughing because that's just it's laughable.
Right?
It really
so all the plans that were available to me did not include board-certified doctors. It just included doctors. And I wanted to find my doctor, the doctor that I've had for a few years, and I had to pay an extra $300 a month just to get my doctor because he was board certified. So I ended up having to cancel the plan that I'd already bought, get a refund on the $1,250, and then buy the $1,500 plan because it included board certified doctors. So I'm answering your question. Forget the front office staff. It's the people in the white coats I'm concerned about with the stethoscopes. Here in the US, there's another reason why healthcare is so bad is you don't have to be board certified to work in hospitals. Whereas in the UK and under the National Health Service, you do. And so the standard of healthcare I have had from doctors, and I've seen a whole bunch, it varies hugely, but it is far more consistent in the UK under a system that is free.
The lady Beatrice asks, Anthony, out of curiosity, what's government financial aid for college like in the UK?
Well, college was free up until I think they changed it in around like the late 90s, maybe. Suddenly you had to start paying for college. But you can get bursaries, and there are schemes that you can apply for to get grants and that kind of thing. And then obviously university, which is what we call the higher education, you have to pay for that. But the price is nothing like it is here. I mean, there are people in the US in their 40s and 50s who haven't yet paid off their student loans. And debt collection companies are calling them all the time. I have friends, they won't answer the phone because they're worried they haven't been in school for 25 years and they're still getting called about it. And yet, and maybe you can answer this, when Joe Biden's administration wants to cancel student debt for large swathes of people, or swaths as you say in America, why is it that people are like, no, that's not fair? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Oh, well, some people have paid, and then what? Other people are going to get it free? That's not fair. Well, you've got to draw a line at some point, haven't you? And say we're trying to do some good.
We've had this discussion. There used to be a producer on the show when we were on KGO Radio in San Francisco, who was very angry about the fact that student debt relief was coming because he had paid off these student loans. And I can understand. I mean, he had to make a lot of sacrifices. He couldn't go to the school he wanted to go to because it was too expensive. So he went to a lesser school and took a loan, and then he paid that loan off. And now here these people are coming in and they just skate. I mean, the same argument, sadly, could be made about Social Security. Like, years ago, you could say, wait a minute, what Social Security? I didn't have Social Security. I had to put money away for my retirement. Now you're telling me these people are just going to get Social Security? Just why? Because you can have, as you say, you have to draw the line somewhere. At some point, some new policy is going to start that you would have benefited from. And that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people.
So, you've got to start voting Democrats in every time, because otherwise all Republicans vote against these types of policies. Not a single Republican votes for erasing student debt. They don't. And
well,
culturally,
they vote for money. The basic object of the game for the GOP is to privatize everything. They'd like to privatize the Postal Service. They'd like to privatize the military. Eric Prince and his crew, they work as a mercenary army, but they want to turn all of our army, or big chunks of it, into what is essentially a private army.
Because it's highly profitable.
It's highly profitable, and there's a myth that you get better quality when it's privatized. That is a myth. I mean, just look at your cable company, look at, whatever is vexing you in terms of a service that you're getting, look at it. That's a private company that's effing it up. So I just don't buy that. Oh, if the government screws up everything, a private industry is what you want. Not always, The thing about the government is they're oftentimes responsible. I mean, private industry, those look at that mercenary army. They go in there, Blackwater, and they start shooting indiscriminately into a crowd, and nothing can be done. There's no recourse. I'm traveling to Europe next month, says Franco. I got medical insurance. Did I waste my money? I have insurance and Medicare.
Well, it depends which country in Europe you're going to, because, of course, the European Union isn't all countries in Europe. But you have to look specifically at, which country and do some research and be like, if you're traveling to France, you don't need to get health care. You don't need to get insurance for the health. I think you should get insurance if you lose your bags and stuff like that. But what I do, and what people should do, is, if your credit card has got built-in travel insurance, then I find that often that's the best thing to use. You don't have to pay extra for it. I think I have a thing called MasterCard World Elite. It's a tiny logo on the back of the credit card. Yeah. And it's a free credit card. It's nothing fancy. But that, if it says World Elite, then that gives you worldwide travel insurance.
I like anything with the word elite in it, if I can just say that. Yeah, I really
It's
do.
the only elite that I'm attached to.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.